What if I told you one of the world's most famous royal babies might not officially exist? Tonight, we're investigating bombshell claims that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle faked the birth certificate of their daughter, Lilibet Diana, a hospital with no record of Meghan ever giving birth, a doctor whose name can't be found in any medical registry, a signature experts say doesn't match, and digital traces pointing not to California, but to Canada. This isn't just royal gossip. If true, it could shake the monarchy and raise serious legal questions. So, is Lilibet Diana a real princess, or the center of a carefully crafted royal secret? Let's dive in. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What if I told you that one of the world's most talked about royal babies might not even officially exist? Sounds insane, right? I mean, we're talking about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, two of the most photographed, analyzed, and scrutinized people on the planet. A couple who stepped away from royal life under a storm of headlines, only to generate a whole new wave of press from California. The same couple whose every move sparks fierce debates, divided public opinion, and endless tabloid covers. But here's the question that's been lurking beneath the glossy magazine spreads, the carefully curated Netflix documentaries, and the big TV interviews. What if there's a secret so big, so fundamentally shocking, that it could call into question the very identity of their own daughter, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor? Today, we're about to dive deep into an explosive claim that sounds like it belongs in a political thriller more than a royal family timeline. The claim that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle might have faked their daughter's birth certificate, and that, according to whistleblowers, investigators, and digital footprints, the hospital where Meghan supposedly gave birth has no record of her being there at all. It's the kind of story that sounds too outrageous to be true. The kind of story you might dismiss as pure conspiracy. But as we'll see, there are documents. There are digital traces. There are alleged eyewitness statements. And the more you look, the more the puzzle pieces start forming a picture that is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. In the next few moments, we'll break down exactly how this rumor began, why a single hospital whistleblower's words set off alarm bells across royal watchers and investigative journalists alike, how a birth certificate, an official document that should be rock solid, might actually hold clues of forgery, and why, if this story proves true, it could become one of the most explosive royal scandals in modern history. Because at the heart of this mystery isn't just a piece of paper. It's the question of who is real, who is telling the truth, and who has the power to craft a narrative so convincing that the entire world might believe it, even if it's fiction. Let's rewind for a moment. June 4th, 2021. The world was just starting to crawl out of lockdowns, vaccine rollouts were ramping up, and people were hungry for a bit of good news. That morning, reports broke that Meghan Markle had given birth to a healthy baby girl named Lilibet Diana, a name that instantly raised eyebrows. Lilibet, the deeply personal childhood nickname of Queen Elizabeth II, used only by those closest to her. And Diana, an homage to Harry's late mother, the Princess of Wales. It was headline gold. News anchors smiled as they announced the birth. Paparazzi rushed to snag photos of Harry leaving their Montecito home. Fans flooded social media with well wishes and digital balloons. And for a brief moment, the internet collectively cooed over the idea of a new royal baby born in the sun-drenched landscape of California. But amid all the congratulatory headlines, a few people started asking quiet questions. Where was the hospital's statement? Why no official photos outside a maternity wing, like we'd seen with William and Kate's children at the Lindo wing? Why did Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, the place where Meghan was rumored to have delivered, stay silent, refusing to confirm or deny anything? And why did the birth certificate surface weeks later, rather than days? To the average royal watcher, these were minor curiosities. After all, Harry and Meghan had left the UK precisely to protect their privacy. Of course, they'd keep their daughter's birth low-key, right? But to some journalists, researchers, and online sleuths, these small details started adding up. Then a whistleblower, reportedly from inside Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, dropped a bombshell. There was no record of a patient named Meghan Markle giving birth there on June 4th. No record under her legal name either, Rachel Meghan Markle. And the hospital's security footage apparently never captured the kind of VIP traffic that would usually follow a royal birth. At first, people dismissed this claim as just another conspiracy theory in an already conspiracy-heavy royal news cycle. After all, Harry and Meghan have attracted wild speculation ever since leaving the firm. But as journalists started digging deeper, other strange details emerged. For starters, there was Meghan's signature on Lilibet's birth certificate. Handwriting experts said it didn't match her signature on other official documents. The slant was different. The pen pressure lighter. The loops in the M and G inconsistent. Minor discrepancies, maybe. But on a legal document, even minor discrepancies can spell trouble. Then there was the matter of the doctor listed on the certificate. Journalists tried to verify the doctor's license. Search medical boards. Scan California state databases. Nothing. The OB/GYN listed didn't appear to exist, at least not as a practicing, licensed professional in California. And if that wasn't enough, digital forensic specialists claimed the IP address used to file Lilibet's birth certificate online traced back to British Columbia, Canada, not Montecito, California. A place that, at the time, Harry and Meghan still had strong ties to after their departure from royal life. Each of these things, on its own, might be explainable. A privacy choice, a clerical error, a digital glitch. But stacked together, they paint a picture that's impossible to ignore. A picture that whispers a deeply unsettling question. What if Lilibet Diana's official documents were fabricated? And if they were, why? Was it purely for privacy, to protect a newborn child from a prying global spotlight? Or is there a darker layer, a legal or financial incentive to produce paperwork that doesn't reflect reality? Because here's the thing, Harry and Meghan are not just parents. They're a brand, a multi-million-dollar brand fueled by their royal connections. Book deals, Netflix productions, public speaking circuits. All of it, in some way, tied to the idea that they're still connected to the British royal bloodline, a connection embodied in their children. And if there's even the slightest doubt cast on the legitimacy of those connections, the stakes couldn't be higher. Now, let's pause here for a second. I know what you might be thinking. This is outrageous. There's no way two people as visible as Harry and Meghan could pull off something like this. The birth certificate is public record. Government systems exist to prevent fraud. And besides, why would they risk it all? All fair points. And it's crucial to remember that Harry and Meghan are not here to defend themselves in this video. We're dealing with claims, some documented, others anecdotal. And any final judgment should come only after all evidence is reviewed and verified. Innocent until proven guilty, as the saying goes. But here's what makes this story worth telling. It's not just about Harry and Meghan. It's about how narratives are built. How the modern world, with social media, digital documents, and 24/7 news cycles, has made it both easier and harder than ever to separate truth from fiction. And how, sometimes, the people we think we know best might still harbor secrets that would leave us speechless. So in this investigation, we're going to look at every angle. The official documents, the alleged whistleblower reports, the digital traces, the potential motives, the palace's response or lack thereof, and finally, the impact this scandal, if true, could have on the British royal family, on public trust, and on the children caught in the middle of it all. By the time we're done, you might still believe that Harry and Meghan's daughter was born exactly where and when they said she was. Or you might start to wonder if there's a hidden chapter in the royal saga that's never been told until now. So buckle up, because what lies ahead isn't just a story about a baby's birth certificate. It's a story about power, privacy, and the lengths to which even the most public figures might go to keep certain secrets locked away. Because sometimes, the biggest secrets are the ones hiding in plain sight. And the story of Lilibet Diana might be the royal family's biggest secret yet. To understand how we got to whispers of a royal baby conspiracy, we need to rewind and piece together the timeline of Harry and Meghan's journey from the world's most photographed couple to a pair now surrounded by questions about their daughter's very existence. It all begins in the summer of 2016. That's when Meghan Markle, an American actress best known for her role in the TV drama Suits, met Prince Harry, the younger son of King Charles III and the late Princess Diana. They were introduced by a mutual friend on what's often described as a blind date. For Harry, Meghan was a breath of fresh air, lively, outspoken, and utterly different from the aristocratic circle he'd grown up in. For Meghan, Harry was a man who'd lived under unimaginable public scrutiny, yet seemed determined to carve out his own path. Fast forward to 2017, and their romance was splashed across newspapers worldwide. Headlines obsessed over everything: Meghan's mixed-race heritage, her American citizenship, her previous marriage. The couple's engagement was announced in November 2017, in a charming garden interview at Kensington Palace, where Harry said the stars were aligned. Their wedding on May 19, 2018, at St. George's Chapel in Windsor, was a global media spectacle. 2 billion people reportedly watched it live. Meghan walked herself partly down the aisle before being met by Prince Charles. The ceremony blended British royal tradition with distinctly American touches, from the gospel choir singing Stand By Me to Bishop Michael Curry's passionate sermon about love. But behind the fairy tale images, tensions were simmering. British tabloids scrutinized Meghan's every move, from how she held her baby bump to the way she crossed her legs at royal events. Rumors of a rift between Harry and his brother William gained steam. There were stories of Meghan clashing with royal staff, being branded Duchess difficult, and tales of tears over bridesmaid dresses. Still, in October 2018, while on a royal tour of Australia, Harry and Meghan announced they were expecting their first child. On May 6, 2019, Meghan gave birth to Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. Unlike royal tradition, there was no immediate photo call on hospital steps. Instead, they introduced Archie to the world 2 days later at Windsor Castle, in a brief appearance lasting barely 3 minutes. That decision to control how and when the public saw their child was the first big clue about how Harry and Meghan would handle royal life going forward. They craved privacy. But they were also becoming global celebrities whose personal stories could fuel massive media revenue. By early 2020, everything changed. In January, Harry and Meghan announced via Instagram that they planned to step back as senior royals, split time between the UK and North America, and become financially independent. The term Megxit was born. Royal insiders were reportedly blindsided. Meetings with Queen Elizabeth, Prince Charles, and Prince William resulted in a transition agreement. Harry and Meghan would give up the use of their HRH titles and stop receiving public funds. From there, the couple relocated to Vancouver Island in Canada briefly before settling in Montecito, California. The public didn't see them much until March 2021, when they sat down with Oprah Winfrey for an explosive televised interview. That interview shook the monarchy. Meghan alleged that during her pregnancy with Archie, a royal insider expressed concerns over how dark her baby's skin might be. Harry said his father had stopped taking his calls. Meghan spoke of suicidal thoughts. The palace issued a carefully worded statement, saying that recollections may vary, but promised to address issues privately. The couple signed multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Spotify. Meghan began working on a children's book. Harry started producing documentaries about mental health. Some hailed them as trailblazers. Others accused them of exploiting royal connections for profit. Then came Valentine's Day, 2021. In a black-and-white photo taken by photographer Misson Harriman, Meghan lay on Harry's lap under a tree, smiling, cradling a growing baby bump. They announced they were expecting their second child. The photo went viral, symbolizing a new chapter in their post-royal life. On June 4, 2021, Meghan reportedly gave birth to Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor. The couple announced the news 2 days later via a statement on their Archewell website. They said their daughter was named Lilibet after the Queen's childhood nickname and Diana in honor of Harry's mother. Here's where things started getting strange. Traditionally, royal births follow a specific pattern. The palace issues a bulletin. The hospital confirms the birth. There's a press pin outside the maternity wing. Even with Archie, though the couple skipped the immediate hospital photo op, they still released details relatively quickly. This time, there was radio silence. No statement from Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. No confirmation from medical staff. No images of Harry rushing Meghan to the hospital or leaving with a car seat in hand. The world simply had to accept the couple's announcement as fact. Weeks later, a copy of Lilibet's birth certificate emerged. It listed Meghan as Rachel Meghan Markle. Harry's occupation was Duke of Sussex. The place of birth, Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. For many, that was enough proof. But some eagle-eyed observers noticed oddities: the late filing date, the unfamiliar doctor's name, the digital metadata suggesting the document was uploaded from Canada. Royal historians quickly pointed out that Lilibet was a private nickname used only by the Queen's parents, sister, and late husband, Prince Philip. The palace was reportedly surprised by the name choice, with conflicting reports about whether Harry and Meghan had asked permission beforehand. Meanwhile, British tabloids seized on every rumor. Some labeled Meghan a liar. Others accused the royal family of racism and cruelty. Social media lit up with hashtags supporting hashtag Team Sussex or denouncing them as manipulative attention seekers. The split between supporters and critics grew sharper than ever. By late 2021, Meghan and Harry largely disappeared from public view again, focusing on projects and raising their children privately. But speculation about Lilibet's birth never fully disappeared. Threads on Reddit and Twitter kept resurfacing questions about the missing hospital records. TikTok videos dissected Meghan's signatures on various documents, comparing them frame by frame. Online investigators tried to trace the IP addresses used for filing official documents. Mainstream media largely ignored these theories, perhaps fearing the legal risks of accusing two high-profile figures of forging a birth certificate. Yet the whispers persisted. And now, years later, a series of new leaks and supposed insider testimonies have brought the rumor roaring back to life. That's the timeline leading us to this very moment, a moment where royal watchers, journalists, and everyday viewers like you are left wondering, could the story of Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor be more complicated than the official narrative suggests? Because if any part of this is true, if there's even a chance that official documents were forged, it's not merely a tabloid scandal. It's a potential constitutional crisis, a question of royal legitimacy, and a story that could rock both sides of the Atlantic. And that's why today, we're examining every piece of this puzzle. If there's one thread in this tangled story that truly ignited the flames of suspicion, it's what insiders are calling the hospital mystery. It's the piece of the puzzle that shifts this whole saga from idle rumor into territory that feels like the opening act of a royal espionage thriller. Because according to a growing chorus of whispers, the very hospital where Meghan Markle claimed to have delivered Lilibet Diana says they have no record of her being there at all. Let's set the scene. Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital is perched in downtown Santa Barbara, California. It's a sprawling complex of pale stucco walls and terracotta tiles, a classic piece of California architecture framed by palm trees and manicured gardens. Inside, it's modern and discreet, with private maternity suites designed to shelter wealthy or high-profile patients from the public eye. This is not a hospital unfamiliar with celebrities. Over the years, its corridors have quietly hosted Hollywood actors, tech moguls, and discreet billionaires needing top-tier medical care away from prying eyes. It's precisely the sort of place you'd expect Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to choose if they wanted privacy while bringing a child into the world. When Harry and Meghan's official statement dropped on June 6, 2021, it was straightforward. Meghan had given birth 2 days earlier, on June 4, at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. The baby was healthy. Meghan was recovering well. That, to the public, was that. Yet from the moment that statement appeared, something fell off to a handful of journalists and royal watchers. First, there was the absolute silence from the hospital itself. Normally, even if a hospital can't release personal details due to privacy laws, there's at least a prepared comment. A spokesperson might say, "We respect patient privacy and cannot confirm or deny details." Instead, Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital stayed completely silent. No confirmation. No polite deflection. No, "We wish the family well." Just silence. Then came the whistleblower. In late 2021, a claim surfaced on an anonymous tip line used by several investigative journalists. The tipster claimed to be a hospital employee who worked the maternity wing during the first week of June 2021. According to this person, there was no record whatsoever, not under Meghan Markle's public name, nor under her legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle, of any patient giving birth matching her description. They claimed the hospital's digital system showed no admission, no check-in, no electronic medical records of a patient named Markle, no birthing suite booked under high-security protocol, which is the standard for celebrity patients. Nothing. At first glance, this could be dismissed as a random internet rumor. The internet is full of anonymous people making wild accusations. But the whistleblower's message contained details that gave some journalists pause. They described internal hospital procedures in precise terms, things like specific digital forms used to admit VIP patients, the security process for locking down the maternity wing, even the color coding of badges issued to security teams handling high-profile guests. Details that matched information from other hospital workers who spoke off record but weren't willing to go public. Equally strange was the mention of hospital security footage. The whistleblower claimed that during the entire 24-hour window surrounding Lilibet's supposed birth, security teams reviewed external and internal cameras, a standard process anytime high-profile patients are rumored to be present. According to the source, there was no evidence of a royal-level security team entering or exiting the building. No black SUVs pulling into the private garage. No perimeter lockdown. No paparazzi loitering nearby. To appreciate how bizarre that is, consider how the hospital normally operates when celebrities give birth. Staff have recounted how even minor celebrities trigger security sweeps. Underground parking is sealed off. Security details hover around corridors. Staff sign strict confidentiality agreements. Local law enforcement sometimes assists with perimeter control. For someone as globally recognized as Meghan Markle, especially amid all the scrutiny following Megxit, it would be nearly impossible to slip in and out undetected. Yet according to the whistleblower, June 4, 2021, was business as usual. No unusual security presence. No VIP patient. Nothing. This revelation immediately raised a question. Could Meghan have given birth under a different name? A pseudonym? In theory, yes. High-profile individuals sometimes register at hospitals under aliases. Movie stars, pop singers, athletes. It's not illegal, so long as proper identification is provided behind the scenes for medical and legal records. But that's where the whistleblower's claim gets stranger still. They insisted that hospital policy requires real identity to appear somewhere in the medical record. Even if the public-facing name is a pseudonym, the back-end records list the patient's legal name for billing and regulatory compliance. And in this case, according to the tipster, there was simply no trace of a patient whose real identity matched Meghan Markle's. Now, let's be fair. Hospitals are bound by HIPAA privacy laws. Even if Meghan had given birth there, staff would be legally barred from confirming it. That's true. But the issue here isn't simply that no one would talk. The issue is a claim of total non-existence in hospital records and absence of any data that should be there if Meghan had been a patient. To complicate matters, journalists attempting to follow up hit a wall. Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital refused to make any comment whatsoever, not even the standard, "We cannot confirm or deny due to patient privacy." Their press office declined calls and emails, reportedly stonewalling even major networks who inquired. That silence only poured fuel on speculation. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry themselves have never publicly addressed these specific allegations. Their statements about Lilibet's birth have remained consistent. June 4, Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. Yet they have offered no further details, photos, or interviews showing Meghan in the hospital around that time. The comparison to past royal births only intensifies the mystery. Consider William and Kate. When Kate gave birth to Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, each delivery was accompanied by official hospital confirmation. There were photos of the couple outside the Lindo wing, waving to crowds. Even when Meghan gave birth to Archie, although she skipped the immediate photo op, the palace still issued a statement naming the hospital and confirming the birth. This time a silence. And that silence has left a vacuum that conspiracy theories rushed in to fill. Adding to the confusion is the location itself. Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital is a large facility but not infinitely discreet. Paparazzi in California have incredibly sophisticated networks of tips and informants. When celebrities check into hospitals, photographers often swarm parking lots and nearby streets within hours. Yet on June 4th, there were no credible reports of paparazzi staking out Cottage Hospital. No blurred telephoto shots of Harry pacing a hallway. No rush of security vehicles. Of course, Harry and Meghan were known to value privacy, perhaps even above their relationship with the monarchy itself. It's entirely plausible they planned a stealthy hospital entry. But the level of total invisibility described by the whistleblower is extreme, especially given the public's relentless interest in Meghan's pregnancy. Another detail the whistleblower mentioned involved internal hospital protocols for recording VIP births. Apparently, there's a digital system requiring staff to log unique patient codes for high-profile deliveries. Those codes trigger a cascade of security alerts, including notifying certain managers, increasing on-site security, and creating an audit trail for later review. The whistleblower insists that audit logs for early June 2021 contain no such entries under any alias that could be traced to Meghan. A second hospital employee, speaking off the record to a British tabloid months later, offered cautious support for the claims. They didn't go so far as to say Meghan was never there, but they admitted that nobody saw the kind of lockdown you'd expect for someone of her fame. This individual described how even local socialites trigger more commotion than what we saw that weekend. Of course, rumors thrive in the absence of certainty. Critics of these allegations point out that Harry and Meghan have been accused of all sorts of false things in recent years. Everything from surrogacy rumors to fake pregnancies has circulated online. It's crucial, they argue, not to accept anonymous claims without corroboration. Yet journalists who've tried to obtain solid evidence one way or the other keep running into brick walls. Hospital records are private. Security footage is inaccessible without a warrant or hospital cooperation. And the couple themselves refuse to elaborate. One investigative reporter from a prominent U.S. magazine described it this way: "It's a Schrodinger's baby situation. Unless someone leaks a document or comes forward on the record, we're left staring into a sealed box, wondering whether the official story is true or not." At the center of all this is a stark question. If Meghan did not deliver Lilibet at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, then where did she give birth? Was there another hospital? A home birth in Montecito? A completely different country? And if so, why wouldn't they simply say so? The stakes are enormous. Birth certificates in the United States aren't just symbolic. They establish identity, citizenship, and legal rights. If any part of the birth certificate is falsified, it carries potentially serious legal consequences for the parents and possibly even for the child's future citizenship claims. Moreover, for a royal child, the stakes are even higher. Lilibet, as a child of Prince Harry, sits within the line of succession to the British throne. Even though Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties, their children's legitimacy still carries constitutional implications. If any doubt were cast on Lilibet's birth, it could fuel an unprecedented legal and constitutional crisis, not just a PR scandal. That's why this hospital mystery matters. It's not merely a curiosity. It's the foundational question that underpins everything else. Did Meghan Markle give birth to Lilibet Diana on June 4, 2021, at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, as officially stated, or is there a missing chapter in this royal story that nobody wants to tell? Because if the hospital truly has no record, and if security footage really shows no trace of a royal-level visit, then we're left confronting the possibility that the official narrative is incomplete. And that possibility sends ripples far beyond Meghan and Harry's personal story. It touches questions of royal legitimacy, public trust, and the delicate balance between privacy and transparency in one of the world's most famous families. For now, all we have are claims, silence, and a growing sense that behind the sunlit walls of Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, there might be secrets waiting to surface. And as we'll see in the next part of this investigation, the mysteries don't end there. It's often said that your signature is your fingerprint on paper, unique, consistent, and deeply personal. No matter how many times you sign your name, subtle characteristics remain the same: the tilt of your letters, the pressure of your pen, the way loops and strokes connect. It's part muscle memory, part personal identity. And it's one of the easiest ways to spot a forgery. So imagine the shock among document examiners and royal watchers when they discovered that Meghan Markle's signature on Lilibet Diana's birth certificate doesn't look quite like Meghan Markle's signature anywhere else. It sounds like a small detail, a flourish of ink on a government form. But in this story, that single scribble has become one of the loudest warning bells. Because if there's even the slightest chance that signature is fake, then the entire document's validity and everything tied to it comes under suspicion. Let's start with the basics. The birth certificate for Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor surfaced publicly a few weeks after her reported birth. It lists Rachel Meghan Markle as the mother. Prince Harry is listed as Henry Charles Albert David Duke of Sussex. The document includes a signature believed to be Meghan's, written in the lower section where parents verify the information's accuracy. At first glance, the signature seems legitimate. It spells Meghan Markle in flowing, elegant script. But almost immediately, eagle-eyed observers online began comparing it to Meghan's known signatures on other documents. And that's when discrepancies began to emerge. For context, Meghan has signed a lot of things in her public life. Legal filings during her acting career, official royal documents, letters, charity endorsements, even her famous guest editorship of British Vogue. Over time, her signature has developed a recognizable style. First, there's the slant. On most documents, Meghan's signature slants distinctly to the right, a trait common among people with assertive, outgoing personalities. The slant is sharp enough that her M often looks like it's leaning forward, as if about to take a step. But on Lilibet's birth certificate, the slant is noticeably more vertical, almost upright. For handwriting experts, That's significant. Slant consistency is one of the strongest identifiers in signature verification. A sudden change often signals either someone else signing or deliberate alteration. Then there's the matter of pressure. Meghan's usual signature shows heavy pen pressure, creating bold, dark lines, especially on the downward strokes of the M and K. It's a style that suggests confidence and decisiveness. Yet the birth certificate signature appears lighter, almost hesitant. The loops are thinner. The pen didn't dig as deeply into the paper. Document examiners point out that while pressure can vary depending on mood, stress, or writing surface, such a pronounced shift is a red flag. Next comes the formation of letters. On Meghan's known signatures, the M in Markle has 3 tall, angular peaks. Each upward stroke is sharp and well-defined. But on the birth certificate, the middle peak of the M is smaller, creating a less symmetrical shape. Even the final E in Markle differs. Meghan's typical signature shows a tight, upward loop on the E, almost like a flourish. The birth certificate's E is flatter, lacking the same flourish. Handwriting experts have a term for this: letter form consistency. Small personal habits tend to remain stable, even when someone tries to disguise their writing. That's why forensic analysts examine not just the overall look of a signature, but each individual stroke. One experienced handwriting analyst, who agreed to speak anonymously due to the sensitivity of the topic, put it bluntly: "From what I've reviewed, there are enough differences to raise serious doubts. It's not a smoking gun on its own, but it's definitely suspicious." Of course, signatures can vary slightly for innocent reasons. Meghan could have been rushed, recovering from childbirth, or using a different pen. She could have signed on an unusual surface. All of these factors can affect a person's writing. But then we run into a complicating factor. Meghan has always been meticulous about her image and her public documents. This is a woman who once curated her personal lifestyle blog, The Tig, down to the exact font styles. She's known for her attention to detail. It's difficult to imagine her accidentally signing a document so important, her child's birth certificate, in a way that looks so noticeably different. Let's look at how this unfolded in public. Shortly after the birth certificate became public, social media users began posting side-by-side images. On one side, Meghan's signature from royal documents filed in the UK. On the other, her signature on Lilibet's birth certificate. The differences went viral. TikTok creators produced frame-by-frame videos showing how the loops differed. Twitter threads analyzed the pressure points and the pen strokes. Reddit groups dedicated to royal speculation picked apart the writing as if examining the Rosetta Stone. Even professional document analysts began weighing in. Some went on record in tabloid interviews, stating the discrepancies were significant. Others cautioned that visual comparison alone is not definitive proof without examining the physical document under magnification and ultraviolet light. Yet here's the catch: nobody outside official channels has seen the physical birth certificate. All analysis so far comes from scanned copies published online, and that presents its own challenges. Scanning can distort slant, blur fine lines, and alter the visual weight of strokes. An ink stroke might appear lighter simply due to scanner settings or compression. So could the apparent inconsistencies simply be an artifact of digital reproduction? That's possible. But digital forensics experts note that while scanning can introduce minor distortions, it's unlikely to explain every difference seen here, especially the changes in letter shape and slant direction. Another layer of intrigue stems from Meghan's signature changes over time. During her suits years, Meghan's autograph was neat, slightly rounded, and almost girlish in style. After joining the royal family, her signature grew more formal, with sharper angles and increased slant. Document examiners view that evolution as normal, a reflection of her shifting personal brand and public role. But the birth certificate signature seems to break that evolution altogether, reverting to a style closer to her earlier years, but missing the consistency of even those older signatures. Critics argue that if the signature is forged, the forger might have copied an older example rather than her more recent royal signatures, trying to avoid legal scrutiny. That's speculation, of course, but it's the kind of speculation fueling theories across social media. Let's also consider the potential motive. Why would anyone fake Meghan's signature on a birth certificate? There are several theories floating around. One is privacy. Perhaps the couple wanted to protect personal details and rushed paperwork under difficult circumstances. Maybe Meghan wasn't physically able to sign at that moment, and someone else signed for her, planning to replace it later. But that scenario still carries legal implications. In California, forging a signature on an official birth record is a crime, even if done with good intentions. Another theory is more conspiratorial, that Lilibet's birth didn't occur as reported, and the document was created after the fact to establish a paper trail. In that scenario, the signature would be crucial, the official seal of authenticity on a potentially fictional narrative. Yet there's an important counterargument. If Harry and Meghan were forging documents, why leave a signature so noticeably different? If this were a deliberate fake, surely they'd be meticulous enough to replicate Meghan's known signature perfectly. That's the puzzle that even conspiracy theorists struggle to explain. It's also worth noting that signature forgery is a risky business. Forensic document examination has advanced dramatically in recent decades. Techniques like infrared spectroscopy can reveal pen pressure differences invisible to the naked eye. Even modern ballpoint inks leave subtle chemical signatures unique to specific brands and batches. A forensic lab could detect a fake signature with high probability if given the original document. So far, there's been no public indication that any law enforcement agency is investigating Lilibet's birth certificate for forgery. The couple has made no statements addressing the signature controversy directly. To their supporters, that silence is evidence of nothing more than a desire to avoid feeding the rumor mill. To their critics, it's proof they're hiding something. It's a classic royal dilemma. Say nothing, and rumors fester. Say something, and the media frenzy escalates tenfold. One royal historian asked about the signature debate, offered a measured perspective. It's entirely possible there's an innocent explanation for the signature discrepancy, he said. But given the unique position Harry and Meghan occupy, half private citizens, half public figures, it's inevitable that every detail, even a pen stroke, becomes fodder for global speculation. Ultimately, the mystery of Meghan's signature is more than just a puzzle for document examiners. It's symbolic of the entire situation surrounding Lilibet's birth. It embodies the uncertainty, the secrecy, and the thin line between truth and rumor that has surrounded Harry and Meghan since they stepped back from royal life. For now, the signature remains an open question. Is it merely an innocent variation, the result of postpartum fatigue, a different pen, or a rushed signing session? Or is it a sign of something far more consequential, that the birth certificate, and possibly the entire official narrative, isn't quite what it seems? Because if the signature is forged, it means someone was willing to risk criminal charges to create an official document that may not reflect reality. And that would transform this story from royal gossip into a genuine scandal with legal consequences. And this is why the signature matters. It's not just ink on paper. It's a symbol of whether the story we've been told about Lilibet Diana's birth is the truth or a carefully constructed facade. As we move forward in this investigation, we'll dive deeper into another piece of this puzzle, the name of the doctor listed on Lilibet's birth certificate, a name that, according to public records, seems to belong to a person who doesn't exist. If there's one detail that might seem small but could actually unravel the entire birth certificate mystery, it's the name of the doctor listed on Lilibet Diana's official records. Because on that document, the very piece of paper meant to confirm the birth of a child who sits in the royal line of succession, there's a name recorded as the attending physician. A name that, after months of searching, journalists, investigators, and even some diehard royal fans cannot seem to tie to any practicing OB/GYN in the state of California. In a story already brimming with suspicious details, this absence might be the most tangible red flag yet. Let's unpack how we even got here. When the birth certificate for Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor surfaced, eagle-eyed observers immediately began scouring it line by line. One of the critical fields in any birth certificate is the name of the physician who attended the birth. It's standard. Hospitals are legally required to record the name of the medical professional responsible for delivering the baby, partly for medical accountability and partly for official records. On Lilibet's document, that physician's name is printed clearly. But that's where the certainty ends. Almost immediately, journalists tried to locate this doctor. Some began with the California Medical Board database, a publicly accessible online portal where anyone can search for a doctor's license, specialty, status, and disciplinary history. It's the same place patients check before choosing a new physician. If you're a licensed OB/GYN in California, you're there. Except this doctor wasn't. Multiple spellings were searched. First name only, last name only. Variations of hyphenated names. Phonetic spellings. Nothing came up. No records. No license under that name. No listing as an OB-GYN. Not in Santa Barbara County, not in Los Angeles, not anywhere in the state. A few journalists expanded the search nationwide. Again, nothing. Some tried cross-referencing medical directories like Healthgrades, Doximity, and WebMD's physician lookup tools. These databases compile information on virtually every practicing doctor in the United States. Still no hits. One investigative reporter who spent weeks on this search described the results as like chasing a ghost. He said, "In every genuine birth record I've ever investigated, you can find the delivering doctor. Even if they've retired, there's usually a record that they were once licensed. Here, it's a total blank. So what are the possible explanations? Let's examine the most benign scenario first. Perhaps the doctor listed on Lilibet's certificate used a legal name that differs from how they're publicly known. Doctors sometimes change names after marriage or divorce, and their medical board license might still reflect an earlier surname. But usually, at least one variation pops up in professional directories. In this case, none did. Another possibility, the doctor could be from out of state, temporarily credentialed in California for a private patient. For high-profile individuals, it's not unheard of to fly in a trusted physician. But California's medical licensing rules are strict. Even visiting doctors must be registered and authorized to practice medicine in the state for liability reasons. So far, no record indicates the listed name ever held such a temporary license. Could the name be a pseudonym? That theory quickly emerged in online forums. It's not standard medical practice, but in extremely sensitive cases, say, high-profile births involving celebrities or royals. Some believe a pseudonym might be used on paperwork to protect a physician's identity from press intrusion. Yet that creates its own problems. A false name on a legal document like a birth certificate constitutes potential fraud. California law requires accurate details on vital records, precisely because those documents establish citizenship, legal identity, and even inheritance rights. If a pseudonym was used, the hospital would have risked serious legal consequences. And it's hard to imagine any reputable medical institution, especially one as established as Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, taking that risk, even for royal clients. This is why many experts find the pseudonym theory unlikely. A former hospital administrator who worked in California maternity wards for over 20 years explained it this way. Doctors might avoid media interviews, but they don't use fake names on birth certificates. That's a legal document. Even for celebrities, you can use a code name in the hospital's internal systems, but the official certificate must show the real attending physician. Which leads to the darker possibility. The name might be fabricated because the birth, as officially described, didn't happen at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital or perhaps didn't happen in California at all. If the whistleblower claims from Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital hold any truth that there's no record of Meghan Markle giving birth there, then whoever filled out the birth certificate still had to list a doctor. A fabricated name could serve as a placeholder, designed to give the appearance of legitimacy while avoiding scrutiny. Yet forging a physician's name on a birth certificate is no minor act. It's a crime under California Penal Code. Even if the motive was privacy, the legal consequences could be severe, including fines and prison sentences for whoever knowingly submits false information. One Los Angeles-based healthcare attorney explained, "A birth certificate is the foundation for a person's identity. Once the document exists, it links to social security records, passports, even future citizenship claims. Any false detail isn't just a clerical error, it's fraud." Interestingly, when news outlets attempted to reach Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital about the mystery doctor, the hospital declined comment, citing patient privacy. When pressed specifically about the doctor's existence, they again refused to answer. That might be standard protocol, or it might suggest they're unwilling to clarify details that could expose inconsistencies. The couple themselves, Harry and Meghan, have made no public comment on the doctor's identity. They've kept their statements to the bare facts: the birth date, the hospital name, the healthy baby. That silence has only fueled speculation further. One royal commentator summarized the dilemma. If Meghan and Harry wanted to end this rumor instantly, they could simply have the doctor confirm their involvement. A statement like, "Yes, I delivered Lilibet on June 4th," would settle it. The fact that hasn't happened leaves a vacuum that conspiracy theories rush to fill. Of course, it's also possible the doctor wishes to avoid publicity altogether. Given the global circus that follows Harry and Meghan, stepping into that spotlight might seem like professional suicide for an OB-GYN who values discretion. But again, it's rare for a practicing physician to be utterly absent from professional records. Adding another wrinkle is the pattern observed in royal births. In the UK, every royal baby born in recent decades has been delivered by a well-known OB/GYN. The media always discovers who it is. In William and Kate's case, Sir Marcus Setchell and later Alan Farthing were publicly acknowledged. Their names appeared in official documents and press reports. No secrecy, no mystery. The lack of such transparency in Lilibet's case is striking. It's one of the starkest departures from royal tradition and feeds suspicions that there's something to hide. But there's also a human angle here. If the doctor does exist and simply wishes to stay private, are we crossing ethical lines by demanding their identity? Privacy is a fundamental right, even for those connected to public figures. Some medical professionals argue that the witch hunt for the doctor's name is intrusive and potentially dangerous, opening them up to harassment or worse. Yet the counterargument is equally strong. The public deserves assurance that official documents involving the royal family, especially those tied to succession rights, are legitimate. It's not merely gossip. It's a matter of public record with constitutional implications. So we're left in an uncomfortable limbo. The doctor's name is printed clearly on the certificate, but no trace of them appears in the professional world. Meghan and Harry remain silent. The hospital refuses to confirm or deny anything, and journalists keep circling the same question. Who signed off on Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor's entry into this world? Because if the doctor doesn't exist, then someone forged a critical piece of a royal child's legal identity. And if the doctor does exist but is hiding from public view, that's still unprecedented in royal history. One investigative journalist covering royal affairs for over 20 years called it the single biggest loose thread in this entire story. He added, "People can speculate about conspiracies all day, but if you can't confirm the doctor's existence, it casts a shadow over the whole narrative. It's the detail that could either legitimize everything or blow it all open. And that's why the missing doctor matters so much. It's not just a line on a form. It's either the stamp of medical legitimacy for a royal birth, or the clue that the birth certificate itself is a carefully constructed facade. As this investigation unfolds, one question remains at the forefront. Why is it so hard to confirm the existence of a doctor who, on paper, played the most crucial role in Lilibet Diana's arrival? Because sometimes, it's not the evidence we see that tells the story. It's the silence and the shadows where names should be. And in the case of Lilibet's birth, those shadows seem to be growing deeper with every unanswered question. Of all the peculiar details surrounding Lilibet Diana's birth, perhaps none seems as mundane, yet potentially as revealing as the timing of her birth certificate's filing. On the surface, it sounds like a bureaucratic technicality. But in the context of a royal child whose very existence has come under question, the delay in filing her official birth record takes on a weight that cannot be ignored. Because in California, birth certificates are supposed to be filed swiftly, often within days. And the longer that process drags out, the more it raises one simple but crucial question. What, exactly, were they waiting for? Let's start with how the system normally works. California law requires births to be registered within 10 days. That's not just a recommendation, it's a legal obligation. Hospitals typically handle this paperwork almost immediately, often while the mother is still in recovery. A birth clerk visits the patient's room, gathers the necessary details, full names, parents' information, doctor's name, time and place of birth, and inputs it into the state's vital records system. For most parents, this process is invisible. By the time they leave the hospital, the state has already created an official record. Within a few weeks, they receive the certified birth certificate in the mail. It's routine, seamless, and nearly universal. Delays do happen, of course. Sometimes parents can't agree on a name. Occasionally, paperwork errors force hospitals to refile. But those are exceptions, not the norm. The average California birth certificate gets filed and recorded within a window of 3 to 7 days. That's why it was so striking that Lilibet's birth certificate surfaced publicly only weeks after her reported birth date. Let's trace the timeline. Harry and Meghan announced Lilibet's birth on June 6, 2021, stating that she was born 2 days earlier, on June 4th, at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. Yet journalists and royal watchers noticed that the birth certificate did not appear in public records immediately. Instead, copies only began circulating several weeks later. Depending on sources, the filing appears to have been completed somewhere between mid to late June. That's well outside the normal 10-day window. Now, you might be thinking, So what? It's only paperwork. But for high-profile births, especially involving royals, such delays are highly unusual. The royal family, and by extension, any official tied to royal records, usually ensures that vital records are perfectly in order, if only to avoid precisely this kind of speculation. So why the delay? Several theories have emerged, each with vastly different implications. The most charitable explanation is privacy. Perhaps Harry and Meghan wished to keep their daughter's birth details out of public reach as long as possible. They've made no secret of wanting to shield their children from the intense scrutiny they faced in the UK. It's possible they instructed hospital staff to hold back paperwork filings until they were ready to announce details on their own terms. But there's a flaw in that scenario. California state law doesn't grant parents the power to indefinitely delay vital records. Even if the couple tried to keep things private, the hospital still has a legal duty to file the certificate within the required window. Birth certificates are a matter of public record, not private arrangement. A former birth records clerk who worked in Southern California explained it this way: "We can't just sit on a birth record because someone famous wants privacy. Once a baby is born, the clock starts ticking. If we fail to file, the hospital faces fines and potential legal issues. So if privacy alone couldn't account for the delay, what else could?" Some suggest clerical errors. Maybe someone misspelled Meghan's legal name, or there was confusion over titles. Harry is listed as the Duke of Sussex rather than his legal name. Perhaps that triggered red tape requiring corrections before the certificate could be finalized. That's possible. But multiple hospital employees have noted that staff at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital are highly experienced in handling celebrity births, where legal names and stage names often differ. They deal with stars who go by aliases. They know how to navigate complex paperwork. A simple typo is unlikely to have delayed the process for weeks. Another explanation might be more serious: uncertainty about what to record. Suppose, for a moment, that Meghan did not give birth at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, as the whistleblower claimed. If that's true, whoever ultimately filed the paperwork would have faced an enormous problem. What do you write on the birth certificate if the hospital listed wasn't the place of birth? In California, the place of birth is a required field. If a child is born at home, it must be documented as such. If born in another state or country, that's also supposed to be noted. Providing false information is a criminal offense under California Penal Code. So, if someone were trying to file a birth certificate with fictional details, they might have needed extra time to decide how to complete the form or to find someone willing to sign off on it. This theory gains traction when combined with the missing doctor mystery. If no real doctor delivered Lilibet at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, then whose name do you put on the paperwork? And who physically signs the document verifying the facts? It's not as simple as filling in a few blanks. Legal signatures and certifications are required. The digital component complicates things further. Birth certificates in California can be filed electronically. Hospitals upload details directly to a state database, which then triggers the creation of the official record. The reported IP address discrepancy, suggesting the document was filed from British Columbia rather than California, raises even more questions. If true, it suggests someone outside the United States may have been involved in submitting the document online. Cybersecurity experts point out that while it's possible to use virtual private networks to disguise an IP address, government systems are designed to detect and flag suspicious logins. If someone was attempting to upload a falsified document from outside the United States, it would likely be noticed, unless they had administrative-level access or help from an insider. Another layer in this puzzle involves the name Lilibet. If reports are true that Harry and Meghan did not receive prior approval from the Queen to use her private childhood nickname, that might have caused a last-minute scramble. Suppose they filed the initial birth certificate with a different name, then later decided to change it to Lilibet once they went public. That scenario could account for a delayed filing or amended certificate. However, legal experts note that name changes on birth certificates are not simple. They often require formal applications, legal fees, and sometimes even a court order, depending on the circumstances. If there was a name swap behind the scenes, it would leave a paper trail, and so far, no publicly available documents indicate such a correction. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry have offered no explanation for the delayed filing. In their public statements, they've simply said Lilibet was born on June 4th at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, leaving journalists to fill in the blanks. One royal commentator summed up the significance like this: "In the royal world, paperwork is sacred. It's not just personal, it's constitutional. The timing of filings, the names listed, the signatures involved, these are matters of state. Any delay invites suspicion. The British monarchy's history makes that perspective understandable. Past royal births have been scrutinized with surgical precision. In centuries gone by, witnesses were physically present at royal deliveries to verify the baby's legitimacy and ensure no changeling was secretly swapped in. Those protocols were born from paranoia and politics, but they left a deep legacy. Royal births are matters of public record because they affect the very line of succession. Even in modern times, royal births remain a carefully choreographed affair. Hospitals issue statements. Officials confirm details. Birth certificates are filed promptly. Deviations from that pattern inevitably attract attention. One veteran royal reporter who covered Prince William and Prince Harry's births in the 1980s put it bluntly: the royals cannot afford mysteries around births. It's the oldest royal scandal in the book, questioning a child's legitimacy. Delays make people ask why. And with Harry and Meghan, any why explodes into a circus. Of course, not everyone sees sinister motives in the delay. Supporters argue that Harry and Meghan have endured relentless press intrusion and made choices to protect their children's privacy. Perhaps they deliberately held back paperwork as a defensive move, fully expecting public curiosity to spiral out of control. But even those sympathetic to the couple concede that delaying a legal document like a birth certificate carries risks. Once conspiracy theories take hold, they're almost impossible to extinguish. A Los Angeles-based lawyer specializing in family law offered this perspective. If there's a legitimate reason for the delay, there should be a paper trail, amended filings, explanatory notes. The silence fuels suspicion because people think, if there's nothing to hide, why hide anything? And that's where we stand. Weeks went by before Lilibet's birth certificate became public. Nobody has offered a clear explanation for the gap. And in the vacuum of answers, speculation continues to grow. So the question remains, was the delayed filing simply an administrative hiccup, the result of cautious parents trying to guard their privacy? Or was it a sign that something about Lilibet's birth, perhaps the location, the circumstances, or even the existence of the event itself, didn't quite match the official story? Because in a world obsessed with Harry and Meghan, even the smallest delay becomes a spotlight. And when the delay involves a document as critical as a royal child's birth certificate, it's not just celebrity gossip anymore. It's a question of history and of who gets to write it. As we continue this investigation, there's one more layer we can't ignore: the digital fingerprints left behind by whoever filed that birth certificate. And as evidence suggests, those fingerprints might point not to Montecito, California, but all the way to British Columbia, Canada. Amid all the twists and turns of the Lilibet birth certificate saga, one piece of evidence might be the most shocking of all. It's not a missing hospital record, a suspicious signature, or an absent doctor. It's something less visible, but potentially far more explosive: the digital trail left behind when the birth certificate was filed. Because according to multiple reports, the IP address used to upload Lilibet Diana's birth certificate into California's official records system wasn't traced to Montecito, California, where Harry and Meghan live, but to British Columbia, Canada. And if that's true, it might blow the lid off the entire official story. To understand why, let's first talk about how digital birth registration works in California. In the past, birth certificates were purely physical documents. Hospitals filled out paper forms, which were then mailed or couriered to county offices. Clerks typed the information into government databases. But over the past 2 decades, the system has gone digital. Today, most hospitals input birth details directly into California's electronic registration system, ERS. It's a secure portal protected by firewalls, encryption, and strict user authentication. When hospital staff log into ERS, their digital sessions are tagged with unique identifiers, including timestamps and, crucially, IP addresses. Those digital footprints help the state detect fraud, unauthorized access, or cyber attacks. It's part of modern data security. Here's the catch: the IP address of the device used to submit Lilibet's birth record allegedly pointed not to Southern California, but to an internet service provider based in British Columbia, Canada. This revelation first surfaced through anonymous cybersecurity sources who began investigating after whistleblower claims emerged from Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. Digital sleuths, many working independently through online forums and private investigative communities, tried to track the public metadata associated with the document. Though the official document released publicly was scrubbed of certain sensitive data, some metadata traces reportedly remained. Enough, allegedly, to reveal that the form submission originated far outside the state of California. Let's break down how that's even possible. Whenever someone connects to the internet, their device is assigned an IP address. That address, a series of numbers separated by periods, acts like a mailing address for digital traffic. While it doesn't reveal a precise street address, it generally indicates geographic location down to a city or region. Internet service providers, ISPs, lease blocks of IP addresses, so a lookup can reveal, for instance, this IP belongs to TELUS Communications in Vancouver, British Columbia. In Lilibet's case, cybersecurity specialists claim that the IP tied to the birth record submission mapped back to a Canadian provider. That's an enormous red flag. Because if Harry and Meghan were in California, why would a document as crucial as their daughter's birth certificate be uploaded from Canada? Of course, there are technical caveats. It's possible to mask one's location using VPNs, virtual private networks. A VPN can route internet traffic through servers anywhere in the world, making it appear as though someone in California is actually sitting in Vancouver or Tokyo or Zurich. That's why cybersecurity professionals always caution that an IP address alone is not irrefutable proof of physical presence. Still, the fact remains. If true, it's an anomaly that demands explanation. Why Canada? The theory swirling among investigators is tied to Harry and Meghan's well-documented time in British Columbia. After announcing their exit from royal duties in January 2020, the couple temporarily settled on Vancouver Island, living in a sprawling mansion near North Saanich. Paparazzi captured them hiking in the woods, walking their dogs on beaches, and even taking boat rides. It was supposed to be a quiet refuge as they figured out the next chapter of their lives. Though they ultimately relocated to Montecito, California, they maintained connections in Canada, including legal and business relationships tied to their nonprofit ventures. It's entirely possible they still have trusted associates there. One scenario suggests that Harry and Meghan, deeply protective of their privacy, might have tasked a Canadian associate with handling the birth certificate filing to keep the process far from local paparazzi and prying California media. By using a Canadian IP, they might have hoped to maintain a layer of separation and security. But that raises two big questions. First, why would the California state government accept an official document submission from outside U.S. borders, especially for a birth certificate? California's vital record systems are designed for in-state use, primarily by hospitals, licensed midwives, and county clerks. Out-of-country submissions could trigger fraud alerts. A veteran IT manager who helped design parts of California's ERS system explained, "It's highly unusual for any foreign IP to touch that portal. There are safeguards specifically meant to block suspicious foreign traffic." Second, if the document was uploaded from Canada, does that suggest Harry and Meghan were physically in Canada during Lilibet's birth? That possibility explodes the entire official timeline. Consider the implications. If Meghan gave birth in Canada, not California, it means the official narrative, including the claim she delivered at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, is false. It would mean the listed hospital on the birth certificate is incorrect. It could also mean the birth certificate itself contains fabricated details, opening a Pandora's box of legal consequences. From a legal standpoint, a child born in Canada to American parents still has pathways to U.S. citizenship. But to claim U.S. birth, the certificate must reflect actual facts. A false statement about place of birth is fraud under both U.S. and Canadian law. A Canadian immigration attorney weighed in on this scenario. If Lilibet was born in British Columbia and the birth was reported as happening in California, that's problematic. Not just for U.S. documents, but also potentially for British citizenship claims tied to royal succession. Then there's the matter of timing. Some investigative journalists have noted an odd gap in Harry and Meghan's public appearances around the time of Lilibet's reported birth. While public records show them residing in Montecito, there's very little photographic evidence placing them physically in California in the days immediately before and after June 4, 2021. Granted, Harry and Meghan had become masters of evading paparazzi. They'd proved capable of moving discreetly, even under intense media scrutiny. Yet the absence of any sightings fuels speculation that they might have traveled quietly to Canada for the birth. Why would they do that? Several theories circulate. One is privacy. Perhaps they believe they'd have a quieter birth experience in British Columbia, where media laws offer stricter privacy protections than in California. Another theory suggests medical reasons. Perhaps Meghan had a trusted doctor or facility in Canada where she felt safer or more comfortable delivering. A third, more conspiratorial, theory posits they sought to avoid California hospitals entirely because Meghan wasn't actually pregnant and the birth involved a surrogate. That claim remains entirely speculative and, as of now, unproven. Still, it's the kind of narrative that has grown around Harry and Meghan, fueled by secrecy and the absence of transparent details. Yet for every person who suspects something suspicious, there's another who argues the Canadian IP story is a misunderstanding. A cybersecurity expert interviewed by a U.S. news outlet cautioned that metadata tied to PDFs, the format in which the birth certificate eventually surfaced, can sometimes reflect the location of whoever scanned or uploaded the document later, not necessarily the person who initially filed it. If a staff member in Canada scanned a paper copy and shared it with journalists, that could explain Canadian metadata without implying fraud. That's a critical distinction. If the original filing happened in California, but a copy was later digitized in Canada, the IP data would reflect the scanning location rather than the official filing. In that scenario, there's no conspiracy, just the messy reality of documents passing through multiple hands. But even this explanation doesn't fully satisfy skeptics. One digital forensics consultant argued that certain logs point not merely to a scanned copy, but to the original online submission. He said, "It's one thing to see Canadian metadata on an email attachment. It's another to see it embedded in records tied to the digital filing process. That suggests the document was uploaded from a Canadian network." This is where the trail grows murky. No official authority has confirmed or denied the IP address reports. California's Department of Public Health has refused to comment on Lilibet's birth record, citing privacy laws. Harry and Meghan have made no statements about the digital filing process, and the hospital remains silent. So, the Canadian connection remains an unsolved puzzle piece in this royal mystery. One British investigative reporter covering royal affairs for decades summed up the problem. A Canadian IP might sound trivial, but it potentially rewrites the whole story. If Meghan and Harry were in Canada, everything from the hospital claim to the legal paperwork becomes suspect. And if they weren't, then why is there a Canadian digital footprint on such an important document? Meanwhile, legal scholars point out that even the appearance of irregularity can cause headaches for royal institutions. If doubts remain about Lilibet's birth details, questions could eventually arise about her place in the line of succession. Under British law, anyone who might someday become monarch must meet certain conditions, including clear proof of birth and citizenship.